Psychedelics are illegal not because a loving government is concerned that you may jump out of a third-story window. Psychedelics are illegal because they dissolve opinion structures and culturally laid down models of behavior and information processing. They open you up to the possibility that everything you know is wrong.
We don't need new laws that control our consciousness and rigidly place it in a prison.
Cognitive liberty. The fact that as adults, if we're not hurting anybody else, we should have the right to explore the contours of our own consciousness without any mediation or legislation on the part of somebody else.
Reject authority. Authority is a lie.
Or is it perception?
Information is power, but we have to seize the opportunity. The opportunity.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back. I'm back. Back from the depths of the dense Amazon jungle rainforest, the Peruvian Amazon, to be more specific. What a trip. What an adventure. Just absolutely unbelievable. So, just right before I get started, I just want to say, if you like this podcast, if you listen to it, just share it with your friends, share the episodes on Facebook or Twitter, retweet when I tweet it out and stuff like that. It'll really help. And also another big help for the show is if you really do like the show, if you're a fan of the show, just go to iTunes if you have iTunes and leave me a nice review and a star rating. So preferably a 5-star rating, that would be good. But that really helps the show, actually. So if you like the show and you want to see it grow and spread, and I'll be able to then get more guests on the show and just do bigger and better things, and hopefully give you guys the content that you want. So just go and leave reviews. Give me some ratings. And the way it works is basically like if I get a lot of reviews and ratings in a short period of time, the iTunes algorithm bumps me up in the rankings, so more people will see me. Maybe we'll hit the new and noteworthy category, but it'll be a good thing. And that's really all I ask. Podcast is free. Everything is free. So if you just if you like the show, just help out. Leave some reviews and stuff, and share it. Okay, cool. So yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you very much. This show wouldn't be anything if I didn't have anyone listening. It would just be me talking to a microphone and recording myself for future generations. But no, we have listeners. Thank you, and thank you very much. So I'm going to probably talk about this trip that I went on. So for those of you who don't know, I haven't been stateside in about 16 days or so. And I went to Peru to participate in an ayahuasca retreat. And it was great. It was really great. Blew me away, matter of fact. And so I'll be talking about this, I think, quite a bit because it was such a profound, monumentous event in my life. I think we're going to do a couple episodes about this. So the first one will be this one, and I just want to start it off by kind of explaining how I came to find out about this stuff and, my whole kind of journey and process to get me to where I was for the last 16 days. So I guess it all started probably maybe 3 or 4 years ago or so. I had been working for this company and didn't really like my job. Prior to that, I've been kind of hopping around from job to job, and I don't want to go too far back into the history, but basically just to give you a general sense of understanding, I never really kind of fit in anywhere. I got kicked out of high school. I got my GED. I then applied to colleges and eventually got into a college, eventually graduated with a college degree. But I just never liked school. I really never liked authority figures. I was always kind of just felt out of place and confused and just angry all the time and full of tons of anger and rage and, just kind of lost, So I did a lot of kind of activities that I guess would be considered to be more destructive than constructive. And so, I found myself 27 years old, working as a marketing manager, managing a group of 12 inside salesmen and women. And it looked like, it was a great company, and they were on the rise, and the salary was good and everything. The hours were very demanding. It just didn't quite click for me. And so much of what I've done in my life, I find myself getting interested in things. Ooh, yeah, that sounds cool. That sounds exciting. And then I can project myself into the future and say, oh, yeah, what would my life look like if I had this position or if I was doing this? And kind of rationalize it and go, okay, this could be a good fit. Let's try it. And just, dive in. And I would normally perform pretty well most of the time, diving into various different things. A lot of, disparate things as well that just have no connection to each other. So just wide range. But eventually it would wear off. It would wear out. And I would just lose interest completely. And this was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. I was working at this job, and it had been a couple months since I've been there. I was doing fairly well. My team was doing well. And I just started to physically feel like just lazy and tired and just, when I woke up in the morning, I couldn't like get out of bed. Like I felt like I just had like, and it was like a malaise or like just kind of a daze that I was in. And I just felt really lethargic and heavy. And I know there's probably a fat joke in there somewhere, but I was actually a little thinner back then. This was around 2012. And so, I remember going to the doctor, and they did a checkup on me, and they were like, hey, you seem fine. I told them what I felt like, what was wrong with me. He said, there's nothing wrong with you. Everything's normal. Everything's good. You don't seem depressed. That's what he said. He said, you seem okay. You don't seem depressed. So, that's the only other conclusion that I can make, but looks like to me that you're fine. And then he asked me, are you depressed? And I said, no. I didn't really understand what that meant. Maybe my ego was getting in the way a little bit. I'm not depressed. Depressed is for, weak people, or not me. I'm tough and, figure things out, do it on my own. So I just felt like disillusioned and just lost and all this stuff. And I wound up just not showing up to work for like a couple days. Like I think I might have like emailed or called or something like early in the morning when I woke up, maybe around 7 a.m. or something. I can't come in today. I'm not feeling well and yada, yada, yada. I don't know. I'm vomiting all night, Typical okey doke, So, I wound up being let go from that position. I kind of wasn't sure if I wanted to quit, and so I kind of forced their hand to let me go. So they let me go, and I was pretty satisfied because that's kind of what I wanted to do, Or actually, now that I'm remembering it, I actually think I did quit because I had like an honest conversation with my boss, and he was a cool dude actually, and he hired me, and I guess maybe took a chance on me a little bit because I was pretty young for a sales manager to lead a team. So, but he liked me. So yeah, I think I told him, look, I just can't do this anymore or something. I just physically feeling like sick, and I just don't know. It's just something's happening. I can't do it. So I think I did quit because I don't remember receiving any kind of unemployment or anything after that. But so I quit, and I just lied on the floor for like days. I remember my roommate and his girlfriend would come home. They'd be like, "What are you doing? Like, what's going on, man?" I was lying on the floor. Just lying on the floor. Doing nothing. Just wallowing in pity or depression. I don't know. I guess that was kind of when my depression kind of really took hold. And I didn't know. And I didn't seek any help and anything. And it was around this time, around like November 2012, that I started kind of... I didn't want to say anything to my family or anything, that I'd quit my job or whatever. And so I think I don't really remember exactly what I did, but I think maybe I waited till like after Christmas in order to make any kind of decisions. So I was just doing a lot of thinking, a lot of reading. And I think it was around this time when I decided to... Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember when I was working for this company, a guy who... I went down to Austin where they were headquartered, and we had a great time in Austin, and great city, and we had a little company retreat, and we kind of were mixing it up with the employees that were out there. And one of the guys that was out there told me that I reminded him of Joe Rogan. He said, I remember specifically, we were driving in his car, and he goes, "Yeah, you remind me a lot of Joe Rogan." He goes, he talks about all this kind of crazy stuff, and he's like real, he's got this podcast, and, he talks about how he smokes DMT. It's like this crazy drug. And I was like, oh, my first reaction, I remember exactly what my first reaction was. My first reaction was Joe Rogan, the guy from Fear Factor. That guy sucks. That guy's a tool. Like my initial response was that this guy is like some kind of weird meathead guy. He was kind of a tool and like kind of cheesy, and he did Fear Factor and like UFC. I'm not really into that stuff, and I was like almost like a little insulted. I'm like, I remind you of Joe Rogan? Like, what? Like, it's fucking weird. But then he said the thing about the DMT, and I was like, well, what's DMT? And then he told me, well, it's this thing that like it's like a psychedelic drug, but it's also in our brains, and it gets released by this gland. It's like really interesting. Like, you should check it out. So okay, so I remembered that months had gone by, I had left, and the job, and it was around maybe December or so, and I had remembered that, and I was like, let me check this out, I guess, and I had never really listened to like a podcast before. I didn't even really know exactly what they were. And so there was a couple things that were happening. One of them was, initially, I had moved to New York City to pursue a career in comedy. And this was around 2010. I graduated college in 2009. And, I lived at my parents' house for like a year. It was a nightmare. So I had to get out of there. I moved to the city. I slept on a friend's couch. I worked at a restaurant. And I went to an open mic night, and it was like my first one. I had mustered up the courage to go eventually. I got really drunk. I went on stage, and I thought I had these like really funny jokes, and I just didn't get anything. And I had no idea how open mics worked. I didn't know that the whole audience was basically just a bunch of disgruntled comics, and I just didn't know anything. So I don't know. It was weird. It was a weird feeling. Like, it didn't give me like confidence or faith, or like it didn't feel fun. It didn't feel like I want to get back and do this. So I didn't go. I know this is a little tangential, but follow along if you can. So I didn't go back. I spent the rest of the year and the years to come just kind of, oh yeah, I do comedy every now and then, just lying to people. I wasn't doing comedy. I went on stage once at an open mic, got drunk, and felt like I didn't want to go back or whatever. Just the reaction that I got wasn't great or something. But then I remember one of the jokes I wrote was actually, I remember seeing like a David Cross special And I'm like, oh shit, I wrote a very similar joke to that. And then like, then I just was like, oh, like I know I'm funny. People always tell me I'm funny. Like, I kept working at these jobs, and people would always say, you should be a comedian. You're really funny. And that's kind of like what kind of like kept that dream, I guess, alive a little bit. So finally, jumping back to around December of 2012, I'm sitting around jobless, and I'm thinking, I'm lost. I'm feeling depressed. And so I start listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Like, I had no idea that this guy was like this. My initial judgment of him was totally wrong. And it was really interesting. I was like, this is fucking cool. Like, this is the stuff that I'm interested in. Or I actually didn't even really know I was interested in that stuff. But I, interested in a lot of different things. I just didn't know that other people were kind of out there. So 2012 was actually a really interesting year for me. So it was, I'm discovering this Joe Rogan podcast. I'm flirting with the idea of getting back into comedy again. I had, earlier in the year, I went to Coachella Music Festival for the first time. Had an amazing kind of life-changing experience. That's the first time that I took LSD. I was like inspired by Steve Jobs' biography, and I did it with my friends, and we had like just a amazing, blissful, just amazing experience. I can't even find the words to describe it. It was so great. Life-changing, I would say, because my perspective had shifted completely after that. And it's also the time that a buddy of mine gave me a book called The Real Crash by Peter Schiff. And I started looking into Peter Schiff, and then I found Ron Paul. Ron Paul was running in the election that year, so I looked more into him. So 2012 was actually a giant year for me. All these doors were kind of opening up. I didn't know it at the time, but they were doors of perception, if you will. So back to December again. Out of the tangent, back to December again. So I had these experiences. I was looking at Ron Paul. I was reading books again. I had these profound experiences with LSD and MDMA. And I knew I was depressed. I knew I wasn't doing what I wanted to do with my life. I had just discovered this podcasting thing and finding out about Joe Rogan and DMT and all the cool, interesting people that he had on his podcast. And I just went down like a wormhole, I started really just, since college, I've always been kind of researching things online on the internet. But now it seemed like what was once available to research and stuff around like 2006, 2007, around that time, 2008, 2009, like I think Twitter had just come out, and Facebook was still very different, but there was a lot of things that I was looking on Wikipedia here and there, occasionally maybe a YouTube thing or something. But 2012 was really when I started to dive in head first. I mean, I'm listening to Rogan. I discovered Alan Watts, Terrence McKenna, Graham Hancock, Aubrey Marcus, all of these people that I had no idea existed, that I had no idea. And at the same time, I'm also reading Ron Paul books and watching the election and reading Peter Schiff's book. And then I discovered Tom Woods. I'm watching Tom Woods lectures online over and over again at the Mises Institute and all that stuff. So all these like ideas start coming together and converging for me. And then I'm like, you know what? Like, this is all really interesting. I'm really interested in this. But, I think I'm really going to give comedy like a real shot. I really feel like I let it slip away, and, I'm really interested in a lot of things, and I feel like I look at the world in a funny way. I'm going to do it. So I did it. So I went January, I went to Eastville Comedy Club, open mic night in New York, and in the East Village, and I did good. I had a good, I did okay for an open mic. I kind of knew what to expect this time around. I had went before, talked to some of the people that were waiting there to do the open mic, and it was cool. It was cool. I felt like a rush. I remember leaving and being like so excited, like to go back. And I was just like, the floodgates had just been wide open. And I started, because I had always been thinking about jokes and stuff. So then I started writing jokes and all this stuff. And it was just awesome. I felt cool. And I went every day. I went like every day to every single open mic that I could go to. And I guess like I didn't really feel so like depressed, like I guess as much, because now I was really doing something that I loved. But the depression wound up, creeping back. And it was like weird, because it's like I have all these things in my life that are like great, that are going on, that's great. Family that loves me, the comedy thing, everything's going great. And I was doing well in comedy. I had done well. I mean, I started working at a comedy club, I think, doing check spots like within the first like 3 months or something like that, or 4 months of doing comedy. And that's when I met my buddy Dave, who I do Part of the Problem with, our other podcast. And he was into all these ideas. And finally, I met somebody else. I was like, oh, dude, like another person I could talk to about, libertarianism and this sort of thing. So it was really cool. And, comics are very interesting people. So you have all kinds of cool conversations with all kinds of different people. And, I'd met other people in the psychedelics and this and that. So it was really interesting. But anyway, so like my depression was just still there. It was still there. It was still apparent and still there. And I remember sitting in a comedy club one night, and I forget what we were talking about. He turned to me and he said something like, well, yeah, I mean, the only time we ever feel good is when we're on stage, obviously. And I was just like, oh, I don't want that. I don't want to feel like shit. Like, I don't want to be fucking depressed and shitty, and then the only time I feel good is when I'm on stage. Like, that just sounded horrible, And I was walking dogs during the day and, picking up shit and getting shit at night, just check spots and dog walking and, just barely paying my rent and eating like shit. And so the depression came back. But meanwhile, this whole time, I'm like, if I go home and if I'm by myself, I'm spending the majority of my time, I'm walking dogs during the day. I'm listening to like 4 or 5 podcasts a day. I'm listening to audio books. I'm reading on the subway. I'm reading at home. I'm watching YouTube videos. I'm doing like I'm doing like a second education. I'm learning more than I've ever learned in my life. I'm reading books by Tom Woods, by Lou Rockwell, by... I'm getting introduced to Murray Rothbard. Then I'm reading all these other kinds of things like Alan Watts, and then Ram Dass and Be Here Now, and like and Dr. Rick Strassman, the DMT, the Spirit Molecule, and I'm watching all these documentaries, and then Zeitgeist, and then all this stuff. It was like I couldn't get enough. I was like hooked on just learning all this information that I could. Graham Hancock's TED Talk, The War on Consciousness, I mean, that was just fucking amazing. Rupert Sheldrake, just digging into Terence McKenna archives, listening to the Psychedelic Salon with Lawrence Haggerty. And I guess I don't really exactly know when it was, but there was a point when I thought, this ayahuasca thing, this might be able to change my life, Because I had heard so many accounts of ayahuasca, I guess, for lack of a better word, trips. Aubrey Marcus, I think, being one of the leading voices out there for it. And then later on, I think Amber Lyon was another one who kind of more like legitimized it for me. And then, of course, Graham Hancock. And so I had known about this for a while, and I kept digging in, and I kind of started to experiment a little bit with what I can get, anything I can get. Terrence 5 grams of psilocybin mushrooms in silent darkness. I was experimenting with the heroic doses and different things, microdosing and, just all kinds of different experiments. I was reading Tim Ferriss blogs and other Dr. James Fadiman, the Psychedelic Explorer's Guide, but not ayahuasca, because I didn't know anyone that had it, and I didn't know where to get it, and I also didn't necessarily want to do it in the city. I didn't want to do it in this kind of underground setting with some, shaman named Bruce who has a twirly mustache and a, fucking patchouli in his apartment. So I thought, if I make some money, if I have enough money, I'm going to go to Peru and I'm going to do ayahuasca. And I know I said do ayahuasca. I don't really see it that way anymore now. But I didn't really have an understanding of exactly what it is. Even when I was reading all this material and watching these documentaries and all this stuff. But I really did feel like this calling, And people talk about this with ayahuasca, like, you should only really go if it calls to you, and so on. All right. And I guess, like, what I mean by a calling is, like, I felt like compelled to go. Like, I felt like there's no debate and there's no choice on the matter. Like, I must go to Peru and do ayahuasca. I must go. I felt like it could be like a solution to, like, all of my problems. I felt so, like, intrigued and curious and just like, this is a something that I must experience. I mean, this sounds like it's just such a mind-blowing, thing. The term psychonaut is used for people who explore psychedelics and their consciousness and whatnot, and it derives from the term, like, astronaut, I guess, from exploring outer space. I mean, I'm never going to go to outer space. I just don't have the capabilities to do that. So for me, I mean, just exploring the cosmos and the mystery of life and the wonder of the universe, I mean, that's what psychedelics was doing for me. It was opening me up every time I used them more and more. And I thought, wow, this ayahuasca, this could be like the big opener, big opener. But I didn't go right away. I remember emailing a shaman who Aubrey Marcus had recommended, Maestro Orlando or something, Trura. His website looked weird. It, like, wasn't really, of course, the Western mind, processing this stuff. Oh, this looks like a shady, weird website. I don't know about this. And he wanted me to, like, pay half or something now, and I just was like, I don't know if not really feeling it. And I just tried to do more and more research, like, where would I go, where would I stay, it was kind of hard to figure out. It wasn't easy, really, to figure out exactly. And I always just had it kind of in the back of my mind, just kind of like, one day I'll go, soon. And then there came a time where I actually had some money enough to go. And I thought to myself, like, should I go? Like, should I do this? Should I really do this? I was like, I could go either, I made a choice. I was like, I could either go to Southeast Asia or I could go to South America, and I can, do ayahuasca, go and participate in an ayahuasca ceremony. But then I was looking at some of these prices, and I was like, it's pretty expensive. And, my dollar will go further if I go to Southeast Asia, and maybe all I need is just to get out of the States and travel a bit. Maybe that's all I need. Maybe that'll help. Maybe that'll cure my depression. Maybe that'll make me have a better understanding of the world and my place in it. So I had, like, a dream one night that, like, I was in Thailand, and I was like, oh, well, that must be it. I'm going to Thailand. So I went to Thailand and traveled around for a bit and came back, and while it was fun and I learned a lot and I had a great experience, I mean, it didn't really change me in the way that I guess I was hoping or looking for. But I guess, over these years, I'm taking all these little baby steps, I'm kind of precautious, doing research, learning, kind of laying low, back in the cut, observing, taking notes, putting things on file, keeping them in the back of my head. So then finally another opportunity came, and I had the money to go, and I said, I gotta go. I have to go now. I have to go now. Otherwise, I'm not going to go. Because I know myself. I'll procrastinate, right? We all do that a bit, right? Procrastinate. I know I'm not gonna be able to do this. I had the time, I had the availability, I had the money, and I figured, what better time to go than now? I better book something now before it gets too late and I get wrapped up in something and I can't go, or the money disappears and I don't have it and then I can't go. So I did. So I did some more research and tried to find places that I knew that were good, that were recommended by people I trusted, people like Amber Lyon, Aubrey Marcus, Graham Hancock, author Jeremy Narby, author of the book The Cosmic Serpent. Other people, Chris Killam, I think he wrote a book called Ayahuasca Test Pilot Handbook or something like that. And so, I was like, I got to do this. I got to do this now before it's too late. So I saw these places that I was looking for that they had come recommended, and I'm like, oh, they're all booked up. They don't have availability till October, November. And I'm like, that's not going to work for me. I got to go now. So I went on this website. There's a website called Aya Advisors. It's a great website. It's kind of like a Yelp for ayahuasca retreats. And I saw this place. It was number 1 in the rankings. I never heard of it before. And so I started looking over it and everything. And I guess it seemed good. And it was relatively cheap, I guess, compared to some of the other ones. I mean, not cheap, but, So I was like, that's it. I'm doing it. Booking it. Booked it. 14-day intensive ayahuasca retreat. Boom. Done. Put half my deposit down. Found a flight to Lima, Peru, then to Iquitos. Round trip. Booked it. Boom. Done. Locked in. I'm going. That's it. I'm going. Call my girlfriend. Tell her I'm going. These are the dates I'm going. I'm doing this. Doing this because I gotta figure some shit out with myself. I gotta. It's kind of hard for you to tell someone, like, look, I'm depressed, I have ADD, I don't love myself, I don't know what's happening, like, I got to get to the root of these problems before it starts affecting our relationship or whatever. But she's very supportive, very understanding, and was like, good, go do what you have to do. So then we were in Woodstock. We were hanging out in Woodstock. We went up there and had a nice little weekend. And I had come across, I think, like some Reddit thread, and there was just this I got a weird vibe from the place that I had booked for the retreat. I got a strange vibe. And I'm thinking, like, this is like important. This is really important. This is like something that has been, I feel like, almost calling to me like forever. Like, this is something that has been this like elusive mystery, maybe this piece of the puzzle that I feel like once I understand what's going on with me, or once I engage in an ayahuasca ceremony, that I'll have a better understanding of my life and all this stuff. This is a huge deal. And I've been kind of stumbling and struggling in the last, my whole life, stumbling and struggling, dealing with anger and depression and ADD and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to take a chance, I saw this Reddit thread, and there were some bad reviews, and, the owners looked like they were doing some, it didn't seem like right to me. Maybe they had some issues in the past when they just started the center, obviously, any kind of business or company runs into issues here or there, especially when they're just starting. They might not have all the materials they need, or they might not have the accommodations they say. It's hard to start a business. It's hard to start something from the ground up, I get that. But this is my life I'm talking about here. My mind, my health, my mental health, and everything. So I got a bad feeling. I got a gut feeling. And I said, this is not, I'm with my girlfriend in Woodstock, and we're having a good time, and I'm going, I don't feel right about this ayahuasca trip that I'm going to go on. I don't think I booked the right place. Like, this place just seems strange. I put all the pieces together. I'm like, I just don't get a good feeling. Like, these reviews and the comments and, some of these images and pictures and the things that people are saying, and, just it doesn't look right. It looks a little weird. I'm not getting a good feeling, and I don't really want to take a chance with my mind. And, I want to go for healing. I'm going down there for healing purposes, not to trip, I could do that with anything, whatever. I'm going down there for healing. So I had a bad feeling, and I just went with my gut instinct, and I immediately emailed them and tried to negotiate to get a refund back for my deposit and tell them, hey, look, I was honest. I was like, I don't have a good feeling about this, and I don't want to participate. So then I'm thinking, like, I got to go. I still have to go, though, because I got my plane ticket, right? I can't cancel that because I found it on, one of those discount airline things, and I'm like, this is a good deal, and I got to go, and, So the places that I had known that were well vetted, that were researched, they were all booked up, and, whatever. I just went to go check again. Let me just go see if there's an opening, because sometimes they have a thing that says, like, join the waiting list or whatever. And I went back to the one place, my number one place, the place that I really wanted to go to, the place that had come highly recommended. And I saw, I was like, oh, there's one spot available. Oh my God, that's amazing. Right for the dates that it lines up perfectly. Right for the dates that I want to go. It's amazing. Oh my God. All right, I gotta book this. So I immediately applied. This was the other, kind of red flag for the other place. The other place, you just pay and you go. You're signed up. They just accept you. This place, you had to actually apply. I had to spend like an hour filling out an application. Telling them why I wanted to go, and, giving them in-depth details of my childhood and medications, ailments, and this sort of thing. So I finally filled everything out, sent it in, and just hoped. Well, I hope they accept me. I really hope they do, because this seems like it's like my last shot. Like, if I don't get in, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I was kind of anxious and worried. Like, the days in between, I was waiting for that email. Kept checking my email. Did they send it? Did they send it? Finally, they sent it, and I was accepted. Great, amazing. I paid them in full right away. Good. Let's lock it in. Let's go. I wound up actually negotiating to get my money back from the other place. I got about actually 80% back, so not bad. I lost a little bit, but when you're it's nothing compared to the benefits that I received from finally going to the right place. I mean, this is, you're talking about your mind here. This is not something that you want to play games with. Your mind, your body, your soul. You don't want to play games with that stuff. So I felt great after I finally got in, and I'm like, great, I'm going June, whatever, 7th or something, 8th. I forget when exactly I left. Or it was June 27th. Yeah, was when my flight left. So I just felt really relieved, and I felt really great, and I'm like, wow, I'm fucking doing this, I'm going for it. I'm going all in. Ayahuasca is like the mothership of psychedelic plant healing medicines. Transformative thing, up there with other, there's other things that are pretty intense as well, but this is the one, this is the one that I felt was right for me. And so I just lived my life and counted down the days until it was time to go. And people ask me, like, was I nervous or worried or something like that? And no, not really, because I had traveled in other countries before by myself, I've been to third world countries and things like that. And so I wasn't really worried. So when the time came to go, I just got on the plane and went and, landed and flew to Lima. And then from Lima, I went to Iquitos and I landed in Iquitos. And now, since I booked this, I booked the plane ticket and the other trip it was a longer period of time. The one that am now approved to go to, and the one that I'm going to is a shorter period of time. So I have like 6 days before we venture off into the jungle. So I'm just going to be sitting in Iquitos for 6 days. Now, why? Why the fuck did I do that to myself? Well, I thought to myself, well, okay, I'll be there a few days before. And, the packet that they sent out to prepare for the ayahuasca journey was, they gave all kinds of advice. And there's this diet that you have to follow, no salt and, no red meat, no pork, no sexual activity, all these restrictions that you have to follow. And I said, I was like, if I'm doing this thing, I'm paying this money, I'm going all this way, I'm going to do it right. And I knew myself that it would be hard for me to kind of stay within the guidelines if I had maybe stayed here, changed my flight. It was going to cost $500 to change my flight anyway. So I figured, whatever. I'll book a hostel in Iquitos for $100 for the week. I'll save myself some money, and I'll just sit there and I'll practice being mindful and, being calm. And they have all these, restaurants there that they recommend. They have ayahuasca diet menus, so they prepare the food for you. Because I'd done all this research beforehand, so I knew, top down, they had recommended these books to read, the presence process, and all this stuff. So, I dove in fully. I was like, I'm doing this. I'm doing it right. I'm going with what they recommend, and I'm doing everything that they say that they're going to do. Now, that's not something that's necessarily comes easy to me, but I knew that if I forced to put myself in the position, that I would make it happen. No matter what, I always kind of try and make it happen. Sometimes I have to force myself to do it, It doesn't really come naturally. I'm not one of these namaste kind of, vegan, peaceful people. I mean, I'm a person that deals with serious levels of anger, rage, frustration, depression, cynicism, narcissism, all sorts of things. ADD, ADHD. So it's not easy for me. It's not easy for me at all. So I'm sitting in Iquitos. First day was okay, whatever. I'm walking around, checking out this crazy town. Iquitos is a crazy town. So Iquitos, Peru is like the jump-off point. It's like the port town, the last city before you enter the Amazon jungle. It's in the Amazon, but it's a city, so it's, And interesting place, right? I mean, this was a place of Spanish colonization, a place of also further Western industrial colonization. There was a rubber boom there. They were big production of rubber, extracting it out of the jungle and manufacturing and selling it and whatnot. That was around the turn of the century. But now it's just like a ghost, not a ghost town because there's a lot of people that are still there, but there's just like dilapidated buildings and just everything's run down, and it just looks like one of those places where there was an industry and now there's no more industry, and people have just everybody just got up and left all at once. But the locals are still there. There's still tons of locals, and it's very noisy and loud, and they drive around on these little tuk-tuks, the little, I like, I call them tuk-tuks because that's what they call them in Thailand. They're like the 3-wheeled kind of motorized horse and buggy kind of thing. Guy driving on the front with a motorcycle, and he's got a little carriage in the back. Usually fits like a couple people. Or sometimes they just, shove like 8 dogs and nine people in there and just somehow make it work. So this little crazy little town is buzzing, and all these big, worn down buildings just falling apart, and then mixed with some newer stuff, and just a crazy mixture of people there. People that I was walking around and going to restaurants and checking out the town, and just people there that are like crazy, like Amazon jungle hunter kind of, John Voight from Anaconda kind of people, with their hats and their jungle getup and their boots and, fucking snake skins and shit. Those kinds of people. Then there's like the people that went there to drink ayahuasca and they just never left, and they have like long dreadlocks, and they're just like, yeah, I'm just trying to like just live here and like whatever, And then there's like people that are there because they're doing like ecological like preservation, in the Amazon. Students interning at a biological reserve, and so a mixture of all kinds of different crazy people. And then there's the locals, and of course and Iquitos is actually a very interesting place because it's not accessible by road. It's the sixth largest city. I don't know what exactly it is, or it might be the largest city in the Western Hemisphere. I don't know exactly what the stats are, but it's something like that. And it's the largest one that's not accessible by road. It's only accessible by boat or by plane. It was fucking cool flying in there too. We're flying over the Amazon River, and I'm looking down and I see this, snake river just snaking around, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. All these green trees and stuff. And so anyway, so I'm there. I'm in Iquitos. I'm finally here. After all these years of reading and researching and wondering and thinking and back and forth and this and that, I'm finally here. I'm sitting in a $20 a night hostel in Iquitos, Peru, going, fuck. Now what do I do? Okay, I can go eat lunch, I guess. Go and get lunch, ayahuasca menu, smoothie, salad, whatever, no salt. But then I'm like, I have these books, but I'm like, I can't concentrate. I'm staying in this kind of shitty place, and it's so fucking hot outside, and just part of me is like, I'm all by myself, and part of me is thinking like, what the fuck am I doing? The fuck am I doing? I think by the second or third day, I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting in my room just going, fuck this shit, man. Like, they want me to, this no sex, and no sugar, no salt, no coffee. Like, I can't eat anything. I'm starving all the time. I feel like so angry and pent up, and then I'm getting all pissed off at myself. The fuck am I doing sitting here in Iquitos for 6 days? I could have changed my flight somehow. I could have, maybe I should have went to Machu Picchu. I should have went to Cusco. I could have been spending time there. What a fucking idiot I am. What a stupid fucking idiot I am. Here I am sitting in this fucking stupid shitty fucking hostel, eating terrible food. I got nothing to eat. I got nothing to do. I can't read because I'm too pissed off. I can't concentrate. It's fucking, every time I go outside, I'm getting accosted by people that want to sell me stuff. I've never met more aggressive street salesmen in my life, and I live in New York. I've never met more aggressive street salesmen. They wouldn't leave me alone. They followed me everywhere I went. They got to know me by name. They knew everything about me. It was hilarious. And I just kept telling him, no, I don't want to buy anything. No, go away. Leave me alone. No. And I just was alone the whole time, and I was pissed. And I'm starting to think, like, God, I just, what? Here I am in the jungle. I'm supposed to go drink this ayahuasca in a few days. And, they want me to adhere to all this stuff. And I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, this is like a psychedelic. Like, I should just be able to take it, and it should just work. And I'm thinking of Terence McKenna. I'm thinking about, like, his when he says, like, you don't have, psychedelics work. It's direct experience. You don't have to bow your head or avert your gaze or, be shuffled around by beady-eyed little men who are, asking you to sit in lotus positions and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, like, fuck that. Like, this is a psychedelic. Like, I should just be able to drink it and just be able to work. Like, fuck this shit. Like, why do I have to eat this way? What is this no sex thing? This is fucking bullshit. Like, energies and spirits. Like, I don't believe in this shit. Like, I never experienced anything like that before. Like, spirits and demons and energies and all kinds of bullshit that they're, like, saying in this. And so I'm getting, like, real cynical. I'm letting my anger and negativity just get the best of me. And I'm just thinking, like, God, this is such bullshit. Like, here I am, just like, oh man, like every day just felt so long. I'm just like, fuck, 6 days. Fuck, 6 fucking days in Iquitos. Fuck. The fuck am I gonna do all day, every day? There's nothing to do, really. I mean, there are things to do, but it's like a part of me was like, I didn't really want to do anything because I was, like, angry. I was like, I don't want to do your fucking, I'm going to go jungle tour. Go fuck you. I don't want to go fucking jungle tour. Fuck you. I'm not paying you. I'm not going to, like, get ripped off by some fucking street hustler. He wants to take me to some zoo or something or go on some jungle tour. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go by myself. Fuck that. I'm not doing that. And then I'm like, I'm thinking, like, the temple, the place that I was going to, they want me to prepare for ayahuasca. They want me to be mindful. They want me to be present. They want me to have a calm, couple of weeks beforehand so I can integrate, like, into the experience well, the diet and, don't consume as much media as I have been and stuff like that. So, good thing. I mean, my Wi-Fi wasn't really working, so I just... I wasn't really getting any news or information, and I mean, I kind of tried to, I was kind of trying to because that's what I fucking do. Like, that's been my life, on Twitter constantly, watching things on YouTube, on Facebook, posting, writing for various different websites, my own website and things like that, and I just couldn't stop. It was almost like I was addicted. Like, and maybe I was angry because I had that separation from that internet, from that internet addiction that I have. And then I was like, oh man, I'm so fucking horny. Like, maybe I could see a tit or something, just, going on Wi-Fi, like, hoping the Wi-Fi connects, waiting like 5 minutes for the fucking blue bar to fill up so I could, like, see some chick in, like, a bikini or something. And I couldn't do anything because they said no sex before, so no masturbation, nothing. So I'm just sitting there frustrated, angry. The fuck am I doing here in the goddamn jungle? Like, who is it? Joe Pesci in the movie Casino. The hell are we doing out here in the goddamn jungle, hey? What are we doing out here in the desert anyway? That's how I felt. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm going through, like, this feels like hell. 6 days before I went to go and do this, the anticipation... my mind was just racing, and then I had a thought. I was like, oh, maybe this is the reason why this worked out this way. And I was thinking, one of the things that they had said about ayahuasca is that once you make the decision and you commit to go and drink ayahuasca, it starts working for you already. And then I started thinking about that. And I had gone back to the previous month, and I thought about all the things. I was like, yeah, I was like, I bought some plants and flowers for my apartment, just because I felt like it. I don't know where that came from, and maybe that was something to do with it, like ayahuasca, it was like, hey, get acclimated to the plant world, And some other things, I guess, were happening. I think one night I cried and I let out some emotions to my girlfriend. I was telling her some things that I'd never told anyone before, and I was like, I felt kind of relieved. I'm like, oh wow, that's, so maybe that was ayahuasca also kind of working for me in this kind of weird spiritual, energetic realm that I was completely unaware of. And then I'm like, yeah, maybe this is like a test, this is like a challenge for my ayahuasca. Like, see if I can disconnect from internet, see if I can be mindful, see if I can, kind of spend some time meditating, see if I can tough it out here in Iquitos for 6 days before I go, see if I can survive here, see if I can eat the food that they're recommending to eat, and see if I can do it, Maybe this is like a test. Maybe the reason why I didn't go to Cusco and go to Machu Picchu is because 6 days in Iquitos was necessary and for my preparation before heading off into the jungle to drink ayahuasca. Maybe things were all working out the way that they were supposed to work out. And then the other part of my mind goes, no, you fucking idiot. You're just an idiot, and you fucked up, and you thought that you would be able to handle 6 days in Iquitos, and you made a mistake, and now you're rationalizing it by thinking about the things that they said that ayahuasca starts working for you, and you're just rationalizing your fuck up to fit the story, to fit the narrative, to make you feel better. Oh boy, I don't know what's going on now, it's the cynical part of me and the intuition part of me, and anyway, 6 days in Iquitos. Went through a lot of emotions during those days, I didn't meet anybody really to talk to, and I was very alone, and I could barely talk to anybody who was at home because the Wi-Fi was so poor. The food was very bland, and it was a struggle. It was a real challenge for me, and I realized maybe whatever the reason is, I was there, and I had to deal with what I had to deal with. And there's been so many times in my life where I've attempted to go on a diet, or I've attempted to meditate, or I've attempted to do all these things that I know could be beneficial for me, but I just didn't do. And now I was in this place, and there was nothing for me to do other than those things. So by like the fourth day, I started doing those things. And it took me 4 days to do it. The first 4 days, the first day I landed, I was fine. Then I spent the second, third, and fourth day pretty much angry and crazy. So by midday, the fourth day, I had that realization. I said, okay, let me just figure this out, Let me do it. Let me try. Let me actually just really make an effort, because why not? What else am I going to do, right? And pretty soon the day will come when it's time to leave. I'm going to be venturing off into the jungle on the 7th day in Iquitos. So I'm not counting that day. The 6 days in Iquitos is what it was, because the 7th day we left and we went to the place. And I decided to change my hotel room, and I went to a different place. I had checked out earlier, and I just decided, fuck it, I'm going to go to this nicer place, because why not? I'll spend the money. Maybe I'll be. And wow, it was like, it wasn't a great hotel, but it was worlds better than the place that I was staying at. I was staying at a hostel for $20 a night. I checked into a place for $60 a night. Big difference. So I felt better there, and I was able to kind of calm my mind, read a little bit more, and kind of start really preparing for this journey that I was about to go on. And then it was the 5th day, and I was like, oh boy, a couple more days and then I'm going. A couple more days, here it is, wow. And then I started getting like a way better mood, And I spent the morning, I would wake up, I would meditate for a little bit, 10 minutes or so. And I don't really know how to meditate, but I just was practicing a mantra, and then I would go eat, and I would, I was enjoying these healthy meals. I was like, yeah, this is good, this feels good, And then I was journaling, and I was writing, and And I just really felt like, yeah, this is gonna be good. I'm back. Like, I'm not angry anymore. I'm ready to go. Now I can't wait to go. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Then the sixth day, same thing. Wake up, meditate, go for a walk. I was buying these Mupacho cigarettes and smoking them. They're like almost like cigar. You smoke it like a cigar. You don't inhale it, and it's a different kind of nicotine. It's called nicotine rustica, and it's grown in the Amazon. And it's actually, I started to research because I'm like, yeah, this is actually like a revered plant down here, tobacco. We have such a different view of it in our world. So I started researching about tobacco, and I was like, cool, like, yeah, like I feel into this now. And I was reading the book that they recommended me to read, and I was learning all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I'm really gearing up, ready to go. And I was like, wow, I wish I could have done this the first day that I've been here. But, that's who I am. I'm this fucking crazy, neurotic, cynical, fucking angry prick. And I just started to let everything get to me, and I just, So then finally, it comes. 7th day, go to the hotel lobby, check out, got my bags. I'm standing there, and there's all these people in the lobby because that's where we're getting picked up. Everyone's getting picked up there to go. They're picking us up on a bus, and then we're going to go get on a boat to go off into the jungle, deep into the heart of the Amazon. And I'm sitting there in the lobby, and I'm looking around, I'm thinking, these are the people that are going? Because everyone kind of looked like really normal Western-looking people of all ages and races and ethnicities and nationalities and genders that just looked like a bunch of normal fucking people, like completely normal. Like I don't know what I was expecting. I guess maybe I was expecting weird, freaky deaky hippie people, namaste, vegan, meditation people, yoga people or something. Just kind of, not really my people. So I didn't really know exactly. I don't know. I kind of felt like more calm, and then I just was like, wow, this is pretty interesting. And then I started striking up a conversation with one of the guys and talking. Yeah, how'd you find out about this? Oh, yeah, I heard something on Joe Rogan's podcast. And then I'm talking to someone else, and they're like, yeah, Aubrey Marcus. Yeah, I heard on Joe Rogan podcast. Oh, I'm talking to someone else, and they're like, yeah, I heard it, Joe Rogan. Whoa, wow, holy shit. This guy's fucking wow. What an influence this guy has had on all these people. I mean, what a platform to provide for the voices of, all these other people that the guests and the influential people. I mean, just an amazing, unbelievable stretch into the lives of just ordinary folks. And I was like, wow, the internet, freedom, Joe Rogan. I'm like, this is fucking crazy. This is like world-changing shit here. Little by little, people hear about things, they learn about things, they research things. The journey that I had been on, I realized, a lot of these people had been on. I don't think there was one person there that was just like, oh, yeah, just, I heard about this last week. Someone said it was a crazy thing, and I just figured I'd do it. I think everybody there had this similar kind of process that I had. They'd heard about it. They'd thought about it. They were influenced by Joe Rogan. All these kinds of things that kind of led them to be there. It was amazing. I mean, it was an amazing group of people, and we all got on that bus, and, we were all kind of strangers then. And, we were strangers, obviously. But we're getting to know each other, and we're talking, and we're going on this bus ride. About 45 minutes to an hour bus ride. And, people from Australia, people from Dubai, people from New Zealand, people from France, people from Canada, people from San Diego, people from Ohio, and people from Slovakia and Poland, people from everywhere. People who were 70 years old, people who were 50 years old, people who were 25 years old. It was such a diverse group of people, and yet we're all there for one purpose: to participate in ayahuasca ceremony with the hope of healing ourselves. And what happened next? I mean, I'll never forget those 9 days that followed. Those people that I was with, it was almost like that bus ride was like a bus ride or a ship ride into battle or something, you know? It was like we're shipping off, kind of getting to know your fellow soldier, sharing war stories, you know, talking about this podcast and telling them about my life, and they're telling me about their lives. And we're getting to know each other, and finally we're there. We're going. We're on the way. We're about to embark on something magical, something beyond words, beyond, ineffable. They kept telling us not to have expectations. That was one of the things that I remember hearing about with ayahuasca. Don't have expectations, because you might get, set up for disappointment, or you might try and force something to be a certain way, and it's not necessarily that, and, yada, yada, yada. So I was like, oh, man, one of the things I'm worried about is that I have all these expectations because I can't help it. I've heard all these stories. I've heard all this stuff, and, it's hard to kind of put that on my mind. I keep thinking about Aubrey Marcus's stories of him, giant alien worlds and big blue beings and entities and, getting eaten alive by snakes and dragons and all this stuff. And I'm like, Jesus. Well, I got to clear all that stuff out of my mind and try and have no expectations. So, but everyone was pretty geared up. We were pretty, the expectations are there, and it's hard to kind of get rid of, but I tried my best. But it was just so fucking cool. Here we all are, finally here, 20 of us or so. We're on this bus, and then we finally get to the point where we get off the bus. And then from getting off the bus, they take all of our bags off the bus, and, we have all of our bags. And I think they have some people that are helping us, some workers there employed by them to help us. And they put all of our bags in these big little boats, little kind of, I don't know how to describe them, like canoe boats or something with a little roof on them, made of wood. And we get in these boats, and, we get on the river, and we start going. We're going down the Amazon River. And then we get to another point, and then we get off. And then they take all of our bags off, and they put all our bags on a different boat. And then we get off those boats. Then we get on 2 smaller boats, and then we get on these small boats, and we put the life jackets on, and we're going through these, like, kind of, back alleyway river, like, little paths in the river. It was so cool. I felt like I was, in some kind of crazy, like, Lewis and Clark expedition movie or something, these back alley neighborhood river streets, that were just off the Amazon now into the skinnier rivers that's going to take us to another point. We're going through, and we're talking, and we're sharing stories, and how did you find out about this, and what did you hear, and this and that, and everybody's sharing, and everyone's really excited. And then we get to another point, and then we get off the small little boats. Everyone gets off the small little boats. They get our bags. The workers have the bags. They all carry our big heavy bags. We carry our small bags, and then we hike 45 minutes to an hour or so until we finally arrive, until we finally get to the beautiful, the majestic, the wonderful, the transformative, sustainable, just perfect, blissful paradise, the Temple of the Way of Light. And we'll continue this story on the next episode of Mikeadelic. Peace.